podcast. I am Richard Mccoll in Bogota. My very special guest is in Cartagena, but she's relocated some years ago to Key West, Florida. This is our Christmas Appeal episode. And so I chose something that's not controversial in the slightest and should pull at all your heartstrings. The person, Maureen Cattieu, Mo, has been on the show before, but it's been more than 10 years, I think, because I think when
Yeah.
she was last on, I didn't have a kid. Now I've got two.
No, you
Um,
do.
so welcome back on the Colombia
Thank you.
Calling podcast. Mo, you are the brains with others behind Cartagena Paws, which has reached 10 years and sadly is coming to an end now. But I think 10 years is a great, it's a great division point. Um,
Yeah.
but tell us a little bit. You were living in Cartagena and your heart broke because you saw all of the stray dogs out there.
Yeah. So over 10 years ago, I think 2011, when I moved to Cartagena, I was teaching at an international school here. And anytime I was not teaching, I was obviously out exploring Cartagena. But with the amount of strays on the streets, you just see countless cats and dogs in need. So I rescued one, my dog who just passed a few months ago, Ramona. She had been hit by a bus, and I did the whole vet treatment and everything. It took 72 days. She almost had her leg amputated, but we saved her, and then she came home. But it was sort of impossible after learning how to help her and seeing it was easy. It was getting them safely to a vet and getting them treated. And I had countless people reaching out, like, what do you need? How can I help? So I saw other people were interested in helping. So, 3 days later, when I saw another dog, scooped them up and started getting them healed and everything at the
And
vet.
did you get land or something? Because it's not something you can have in your house, right? All these strays.
No, well, before what we would do is we did a lot of, I networked with a lot of the teachers and expats in the area. We had some great volunteers who wanted to do foster homes once they were healthy and out of the vet clinics.
Yes.
So we relied a lot on that. And that was at the time we were flying animals internationally. So
Okay.
in the past 10 years, though, with flying, we flew over 250 animals to the States and Canada. So
No way.
a lot has changed since our talk. Yeah, we successfully over 250 adoptions. And I'm just so happy that we were able to do that. I know things are really hard now with traveling, but looking at that number and knowing that they're in great homes and have great families, just is everything.
250. How I can only imagine the shock of a rescued and a happy pup ending up in, I don't know, Halifax, Canada in the winter from Cartagena.
Yes, yes, we've had them all over.
That's incredible. 250 is an amazing job. And so how many years were you in Cartagena doing this?
I lived in Cartagena for 10 years. So I came back closer in 2019, 2020, right
So
before COVID.
COVID, yeah.
I flew home, my contract ended, and at the time I was doing a spouse visa and ended up flying home and getting a job in the States. So
Yeah.
it's been 5 years. I did visit my old school and had some great memories. And the kids, I got to see some of the students I used to work with, and their first questions were about the animals, about the turtles, and I was just like, "Wow, you guys are seniors now, but you still remember all of this from first grade." So,
So you're changing, I would say, an attitude towards animals because this is something I'd like to explore a little bit. I have my businesses in Monpós and I know Cartagena very well. I live in Bogota, but it seems to me that in the Caribbean coast, there's a real innate fear of dogs. I think it's because of rabies. I mean, that for me, but I would say also not the fear, but there's a cruelty towards them, right?
I didn't hear that one part. So sorry.
Okay, so do you think there's like a regular cruelty towards dogs on the Caribbean coast?
Yes. So this is actually so. Yes.
Mm.
We struggle a lot with this. So making a long story short, when we were no longer able to fly animals to the States with COVID and all the new regulations and it just being so expensive and then going through cargo, we switched our mission to, okay, we can't get them out, but what can we do to curb this this huge increase in population? So we were doing spay and neuter clinics, but then the co-director, Stephanie Hartman, and I, who are both teachers, we both work down here, like, but we're missing the whole link. Like, if we don't change the minds of the children who will be that generation of how to treat animals and everything, we're not really doing much. So we actually ended up doing spay and neuter clinics, and simultaneously we had education clinics going at the same time. So we'd get kids from the community to come and we do like empathy lessons. We actually wrote a children's book about Hefe and Ramona, who's my dog and my cat, and how even though they're different, they can get along. And it was a lot to take away because the kids didn't even know their own essentials that they needed to survive. So we talked about just like basic needs. You know, what do you need each day? And they're just like looking at us for like water, and they're like, oh yeah, water. So first it was that part of like, what do you need, and then what does an animal need, and then getting into the basics of empathy and compassion. So that's something that we're always really proud of because the kids remembered whenever we would go back, because we would go back every few months to the same areas to keep doing the spay and neuters and the tick and flea treatments. And they'd come running up. They'd tell us about the dogs they helped. They wanted to show us, really proud if they set up like a food container. So that's huge. But it's a struggle because there's just a basic need in general from the human population. So then to think about helping an animal, it's like a whole other vision. But hopefully that will continue to change with the more people who are helping the animals and spreading that word.
Well, do you think that this attitude, it comes from things like rabies and the fear, or I mean, where do you think this attitude comes from?
I think it's just the mentality of, if we think of like stray dogs, like I think of islands, for example, the kids automatically would think, oh, the dog's going to bite me. And it might be that maybe they've been bit or they saw one of the angry stray dogs fighting over food. So I think it's more of this fear of I could get hurt. So it's better to just shoo them away. Yeah, I don't really know. It's just...
It's got to be so hard. It's got to be so hard. I mean, it distresses me immensely. Treatment towards strays and so on. And of course, let's talk about what kind of, did you go into barrios or neighborhoods like the Pie de la Popa and places like that? Where were you going into?
So we did a lot of work in La Boquilla, which is a beach area right outside of Cartagena. We did Tierra Baja, which is out in Zona Norte. And then we were doing right outside of Pie de Popa, just different areas there, where we would unite with two Fiel Amigo. They would bring their team, we would have our team, and we would just set up shop, spay, neuter, and do the education clinics. But trying to think of the other places we've done them. And then we did do 2 years ago, we even went to La Guajira. We did a whole Thanksgiving mission. So we even did a whole week of spay and neuters and vaccinations on the Venezuelan border up in La Guajira, which was a whole other mindset there. The animals are in horrible conditions there. A lot of the times we couldn't even spay them. We just wanted to give them a bath of some kind and see if we could do tick and flea control. Because if they weren't healthy enough to be spayed, we couldn't take the chance. But at least they got a full belly, they got dewormed, and they got tick and flea control.
Amazing. The Guajira, of course, up with the Venezuelan border, the desert up there, is there even more of a different attitude towards the dogs up there?
Yes. Yes, I think the people are in dire need in general of just food and their basic needs on a daily life. That, like, the thought of helping an animal too is just a whole other mindset.
It's beyond, isn't it? It's beyond. And when you went into these areas, and in particular La Guajira, or you went into Tierra Baja and places like this, how did the people receive you?
So we did we did a lot of work prior to the spay and neuters. So we would actually unite with the groups, the rescue groups, and we would send locals out from that area to go and sort of talk to people about, would you consider having your dog spayed? We have a group coming down of some people from the States, some doctors from Medellin, and we sort of had that whole talk with them and had them sign up ahead of time. And then in return, we did have to offer an incentive to have some buy-in, that we would have their kids for an educational program. They would receive a book, and that they would get a hot lunch, and they'd spend the day with us. So that was also buy-in for parents. Like, yes, you can take my child for the day and feed him and teach him something. Yes. So I think that was a lot of the reason that people would sign up. I think as far as us, most of my experiences, I've had people who've been really grateful. Like, they just would come up and they wanted to know how to help the animals. Again, that also is something, the idea of spaying or neutering. They're like, what? We'd have to explain what that even is. I don't even know if there was that idea that that's something you should be doing to your animal, even if it's just an animal that you give food to.
Yeah.
So we'd have that whole talk, like, well, do you want 6 more puppies on your patio in the next few months? And they'd say no. And we'd be like, well, let's give them a better life. Let's get them healthy and let's get them spayed.
Yeah, definitely. You just mentioned Tu Fiel Amigo, so your faithful friend. Now, this is your partner program, and these are the ones who you're going to work with now that Cartagena Paws is ending after 10 years. Tu Fiel Amigo is your go-to place, right?
They're our go-to. That's Dr. Jerison Hernandez. He's based at Tu Fiel Amigo. He has his animal clinic there. We've worked with him for the past 4 years now. We've done all of our surgeries, all of our spay and neuter clinics, education clinics. We're with him. He's an amazing vet, and he truly is a very humble person. And he loves his work. He loves animals. Every case, no matter how many animals, I think he's up to 250 animals right now in his clinic in Medellin, which is why it's so important that we are securing land for these animals now and starting to build. But he truly is a humble vet who just wants to do good for the animals. And so he is our go-to. I know our animals are in good care there. I visited them actually before coming here. So I spent 4 days in Medellin, and then now I'm here in Cartagena.
And does he have programs in Cartagena, or you have other affiliates?
So he travels all through Colombia doing spay and neuters. He was just in La Guajira again, and then he goes down to closer to the Ecuadorian border. He's been in the Amazons even to do spay and neuters. I couldn't even tell you how many thousands and thousands of animals that he has helped. So that was like a reason we united with him, is he's really creating that change that Colombia needs. And he's doing the work. So it was easy to unite with them.
I'm so happy, because then you can leave up your social media, which obviously has a good following, Cartagena Paws, and continue to promote Tu Fiel Amigo. And this is our Christmas appeal. So this is our Christmas appeal here. They have an Amazon wish list, right? So people overseas can sign up and buy things that are desperately needed. Rather than donating money, you can buy the product straight away. So we will put that up on our Facebook page and on social media and elsewhere. And hopefully one or two of my listeners might donate something that's needed. But what are the kind of things that are really needed, Mo?
So on our wish list, we have a lot of leashes, just containers for the food, dog bowls. We have a lot of tick and flea medication. For some of the animals that are in like critical care, they use a lot of towels, but we put up some different beds, some types of bedding, pee-pee pads for the puppies, just the basics that when someone really wants to see, and vitamins, a lot of the vitamins that we can't always get down here, but they still can ship on Amazon. So we just built it up, and we're continuing to build it each day. I forget what they have. They have these special shirts when dogs are really anxious, when they've been like really mistreated. It's like anxiety jackets, which are really hard to find here. And then the kitten, like the little bottles for the baby kittens that we find without their mom. So the second we saw that list and he was like, wait, it can come here. I'm like, yes, we're sharing this list. So we have the both options. We have PayPal, and then we have the wish list, and hopefully they'll come out with a Christmas wish list too.
And a question, you've got land now. You've helped him get land in Medellin.
Yes. Yes, we helped secure the land with Dr. Jerson with Fiel Amigo. So they have land. It's more in a rural area outside of Medellin. He would still keep his vet clinic, which brings him funds for his rescues. But the land is where these animals, these 250, majority of them would be, and they'd have a space that would be where they'd be able to run. It's very green. It looks beautiful. It was great to visit there. They've already started building just slowly as materials and funds come in. They started building, but that's our holdup right now. Just get fundraising for the materials to build an enclosure and an enclosure for the animals.
It's one of those things. Yeah, I don't know. You see a dog. I don't know very much about cats, but I'm a dog person. You see one, you put the pictures up, and it's asking for help, and it does pull the heartstrings. And many years ago, I did donate because there was a little dog called Gordon who was in a really poor way, and unfortunately, Gordon didn't make it. But it's one of those things you really get involved. Now, sadly, your 10-year-old or 10 years that you had, Ramona from Cartagena, she's passed on. You've been down for a few days in Cartagena, and you've fallen in love with another puppy.
Yes, I didn't know if I was ready, and it's I'm gonna try not to cry. It's funny it's crazy how it happened, because I actually met her exactly 2 months since Ramona had passed. And I just kept staring at her, and she had like these sweet eyes, and she was looking at me. I'm like, this reminds me so much of my girl. So we had some time. They're definitely different dogs, but especially for me, I said, how can I keep saying I'm not ready when I've run this animal rescue, and my 1-bedroom apartment in Cartagena at one point was full of 8 dogs, you know?
God.
And so Ramona would want this. And so now we're going to start that process of how to get Chili home with the new CDC permits and titter tests for rabies. But I'll tell you what, if it seems like an easy process, she might not be the only one I'm going to bring up.
Tell me something. Yeah, I mean, I guess things got even stricter after COVID, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
COVID sort of did affect our ability to fly animals home. They started with, we had to go through certain cities. We had to usually do cargo, and cargo was through a cargo company, which added incredible amounts of payment. I think our last group of animals we flew in 2021 was close to $6,000. We flew 4 animals, and we fundraised that. But when you think about what that money could do, how many animals could be spayed, how many could be neutered, and what was going to have the biggest effect moving forward, that's when we made the shift to education and spay and neuter clinics.
Yeah, I like the education and the spay and neuter. I mean, I understand the really amazing goodwill of people shipping and so on, but it's about changing the attitudes on the ground. I mean, unless you can educate people and show them, you're not going to change anything at all. You're just going to take. And again, I applaud it immensely, taking dogs out of, or animals, cats out of such an awful situation. But it needs to be changed at the source, the long term.
Hoping it will get easier as time goes on. Colombia happens to be on the list of a high risk for rabies.
Yes.
So the new addition to all of this is having to do a titter test, which 30 days after the rabies vaccine has to get sent to either somewhere in Kansas, or there's 2 places in the States, and then you have to wait on that and then start a whole other process. It's not at all what it used to be, but I'm going to learn all about this process.
Oh yeah, you're going to be the expert. But 2 places in the US only.
Yes.
And so therefore they monopolize the price.
Right. I'm not sure what the price is. I just said, let's start the process, because I said I'm ready. And when they send me that bill, we'll get there. But yeah, those are the approved laboratories, I guess, where they can look at the immune system and see if they have the antibodies against rabies. And once that's approved, you can move forward with with it.
So I've worked all over the South America, and what, in a previous life, I used to bring over students from the UK, and one of the kids got sick, 18-year-old. So his parents came out, and then the dad petted a stray dog in Ecuador, and got ill from that. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't rabies, it wasn't bitten, but it must have been a type of allergy from a mange or something.
Yeah,
Have you
can get some
thought,
skin infections. Yeah. Sometimes people, most of my volunteers, whenever they've come down on the spay and neuter clinics, they always want to we do the tick tests after. We're just looking at each other for ticks to make sure none of the ticks have crawled on us, because that can also carry Lyme disease and everything else.
So we don't recommend people to go and go immediately and scoop up dogs. It's like you want to pick them up in a blanket, right?
Yes, and also just to know and to read their signs, and to start with food, because I mean, some of them can look very, very ill and like they don't have a lot of energy, but the second you try to put a leash around them or something, they can flip out. So it's just, and we have like the anti-bite gloves we use now and everything, and the thicker blankets, because that also helps them. They don't feel, as stressed if we have a blanket around them versus just.
Yeah, it's. I mean, from the dog who's been so mistreated, it's self-preservation, isn't it?
Exactly.
The last energy.
Exactly. Whenever you have a muzzle in hand, that's always the best way. But.
Have you had ticks and skin irritations and so on?
No, I got ringworm one time, like years ago. When what was I doing? I was fostering a kitten or two, and they had ringworm. And I don't know, I used some cream I bought in Colombia, and it was gone in a week. It was just a one little spot. I have been bit a few times. Nothing major with these dogs, but it was just either they were scared or it was right before surgery, and we were gonna start preparing them for surgery. They were scared with like putting the tape around the wrist or whatnot, but it comes with the job.
Yeah, of course. Well, I know that you have to jump on a plane quite soon back to the US, and of course, you're leaving these dogs behind, but you're not leaving them behind. You'll be back, and you're working with Tu Fiel Amigo, and then Chili is going to end up in Key West and have
yes, Chili will have a life in Key West, and that's the one thing. We might not be collecting donations anymore, but that's not going to stop us from coming back. And the volunteers that I've had over the years, we just want to do that, gather funds for them, come down, help them out. We'll give them hands, but it's ready for, we're ready for them to carry on with the mission that we sort of started, and see the great things they can do right within their own country.
This is what I like, you see. There's been a kind of parallel, but together, working with local organizations, helping them get up to a standard, and then handing over. It can't just be, the kind-hearted people such as yourself. It needs to be, again, like right from the ground. And this is an incredible work. And again, like I'm saying, this is our Christmas Appeal podcast. So I hope that people out there will go to the Amazon link that we will put up in on all the social medias and so on, and follow Cartagena Paws. Even though they're closing down, they will have everything up on their Instagram and everything else, the Facebook page, everything will be up there too. I'm in absolute admiration for your work. I'm a dog person. My dog passed away more than 2 years ago. I'm not ready. It was 12 years with this guy,
Yes. I know that feeling.
Although I'm starting to feel more and more affection for the dogs that I see and pet, and in fact, my brother and sister-in-law have one of my dog's sons who's now getting long in the tooth, but I love to see it, because it reminds me, of course, of the good times. But maybe 2025 we'll be adopting a dog, maybe. But see, the problem is all my family have allergies, so it has to be a short hair.
Short hair, all the rules.
Yeah, we have to follow it, and yeah, well, we'll see how it goes. We'll see. I mean, it's a tough one. There's so many animals that need need some support.
Yes.
But I'm a sucker for this.
I always remember anytime we rescued a poodle or any of the like dogs that specifically were better for people with allergies, that we had so many people writing immediately like, can I adopt it? I didn't blame them if they have allergies, but they still wanted to help. So I
That's cool.
always remember that though.
That's cool. Well, Mo, it's been an absolute pleasure. I wish you all the best on your trip back to Key West. And Maureen Cattieu is teaching there. She's an academic coach in Key West. And has what a wonderful heart you have for 10 years of doing this work in Cartagena, 10 years of the foundation, and continuing to return to Colombia to ensure that this is done. It's really heartwarming. There are people such as yourself so selflessly donating time and raising funds.
I definitely we never could have done this without all of our supporters and people who've been helping us out, and the Cartagena Paws team itself. That's why it's bittersweet, but we did a good thing and now it's in good hands and ready to move forward.
All right, so you know who they're supporting is Tu Fiel Amigo. They are based in Medellin. The vet's name is Gerson Hernandez. And of course, as I said, everything will be up on social media. Mo, have a great Christmas and a wonderful New Year. Maybe our paths will cross in 2025.
Thank you so much, Richard.
It's an absolute
Thank
pleasure.
you.
That's an absolute pleasure. This has been episode 547 of the Colombia Calling podcast. I've been Richard Mccoll. Please consider donating to these foundations. It's been wonderful to reconnect with someone I hadn't spoken to, but have followed quite steadily on social media all of these years. Again, she puts money where her mouth is. That's 250 dogs have been rescued from Colombia and transported to the United States and Canada over the time. I mean, amazing stuff. So we're going to leave you with some messages from our sponsors, and we'll be back next week with another episode. But again, this has been another heartwarming episode, but a call also for support. Thank you to Maureen Cattieu, and this has been Colombia Calling. Bye-bye. There you go.
Yay!
Thank you so much.
The music started blasting towards that. I'm like, no.
That's all right. It's all right. It's